Hello! Welcome to this video. It has been a long time since I have been here. Hello, it's good to see you again. I hope it's good to see me too. I put makeup on for you guys. Oh, also I still have a little bit of temporary tattoos from 4th of July on my body. So if you are seeing that kind of stuff, that's what that is. But anyway, this is my book wrap up for the past 3 months. April, May, and June. Honestly, I should have been doing this monthly because I now have over 40 books to talk about. In the past 3 months, I have read 41 books, and it's a lot. I've had such a great reading year. I don't know how this happened, but I'm very happy about it because I absolutely love reading. So because I do have a lot of books to talk about, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the books. I'm probably just gonna try and give a very short synopsis and then like a 1-sentence my thoughts on the book, and that'll be it. So I'm not gonna go too in depth. I'm very sorry if that's what you want, but if I did that, we would literally be here for 2 hours, and I don't want that. I don't think you want that. So we're going to just be really short and sweet about these books. As always, I do like to start with stats. I have combined all 3 months into one stat, so I'm not doing 3 different stats. And I wrote them all down on Post-its for myself. So, total, as you know, I read 41 books. That equals to 10,686 pages, which averages out to about 117 pages per day. My shortest book was 67 pages and my longest book was 511 pages. Okay, now I read 25 hardcovers and 16 paperbacks. I read 24 white authors and 17 BIPOC authors. I read 21 2021 books and then I read 20 backlisted books. I read 11 male authors, 27 female authors, and 3 non-binary authors. And then I read 6 middle grade, 16 YA, and 19 adult books. For genres, I read 8 different genres. The most I read was fantasy with 11 books. And then I read 8 contemporary, 6 nonfiction, 5 poetry, 4 romance, 4 sci-fi, 2 historical fiction, and 1 horror. And then for my star ratings, I have 2 1-star, 4 2 stars, 8 3 stars, 19 4 stars, and 6 5 stars, which comes as an average of 3.6 stars. If you're wondering if the math is off, it is not there, because there were 2 books that I read that I did not give a rating to, so I just didn't include them in my little rating. But there you have it, my stats. And now we're going to move on to the books. I usually talk about these books in order of like genre, so I separate them by genres, but this time I kind of want to do it a different way. I want to start with my least favorite book and then end with my favorite book. So I have all these books in order of my liking of them. But I will first start off with the books that I didn't rate, and you'll see why I didn't rate them. First book I have here is Romeo and Juliet, the graphic novel edition. Right? SparkNotes, aka No Fear Shakespeare, have been doing this thing where they're taking their modern translations of Shakespeare plays and putting them into graphic novels. And it's really cute. They've only have 3 so far, and this is the only one I've read. But I didn't rate this because this is technically a reread. I've read Romeo and Juliet, I want to say at least like 5 times now in my life, but this is the first time I did read it as a graphic novel, and I just thought this was cool. And the last book that I didn't rate was Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I have read 2 of her other books, and I do plan to read on reading more. How did that sentence work? But this is her newest release, and it is Notes on Grief. She lost her father due to COVID, and so she just like kind of wrote down her process of grieving her dad within these pages. And it felt wrong to rate a book like this, which is why I didn't rate it, because like this is her own personal experience of dealing with the loss of a loved one, so I didn't want to put a rating on that. I definitely think this is something for people who are going through a grieving process. because you can share with someone your grief just like she is sharing with other people her grief. So my first 1 star is actually a DNF that I don't physically have here with me, and that is Talk Bookish to Me. I can't remember the author, but this was absolute garbage. It's an adult romance about a woman who's like a writer. She's a writer. And I think this is like a second chance romance. I can't remember all of a sudden. But I think she like runs into like her crush from high school, or maybe it was an ex-boyfriend from high school, or maybe it's just a complete stranger. I could be wrong. I really don't remember a lot about this book. I have blocked a lot of it out because the writing was just atrocious. The main character was also annoying, and I couldn't see the chemistry between the main 2 characters. I wanted to like go all the way to the end because like I tend to like adult romances for its cheesiness, but this was just like too bad. It was way too bad to continue reading, so I stopped, I want to say a good like 70% of the way into the book. But after DNFing it, I did give it 1 star. Alright, and my last 1 star is High School Musical, the musical, the series, the novelization. So this is just taking that first season of High School Musical, the series, and putting it into a book form, kind of like with Julie and the Phantoms, which I read that and reviewed that earlier in the year. But this one was awful. They like took out a bunch of stuff. I read this within 1 sitting and it was super boring. And I know it's for kids, but I also don't think kids will enjoy this. Like, it was just really bad. Now we're moving on to 2 stars, and my first 2 star was another DNF. And it's the only other DNF that I have. I only DNF'd 2 books. And that would be Witches Steeped in Gold. And I'm so upset about it because I was so looking forward to this book. It sounded like something I would really love. It's about 2 witches. They're on rival clans, like they hate each other, but they have to work together to take down a common enemy, a common evil. I really, really could not get into this book. The world building and the writing was just so confusing. I had no idea what was going on. I couldn't keep any of the characters straight. And eventually, I want to say at like the 55% mark, I think I gave it like 200 something pages. But I couldn't continue on with it because I was like, I'm not looking forward to picking up this book ever, and every time I do, I'm so lost and confused. The next book is Somebody Give This Heart a Pen by Sophia Thacker. This was, I don't know why I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. Like, it was okay, but I just didn't really feel anything. This is a collection of poetry for young adults, talking about race and growing up and like coming of age and whatnot, which of course sounds like something I would really enjoy, but there's something about the writing that I just couldn't get into. Next on my list is Hunted by Megan Spooner. I had a feeling when I picked this book up that it was just going to be an okay book, and that kind of is true, but more on the side of okay. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling for young adults, but there were just a lot of character choices that I didn't quite understand. Most of it was very boring and very slow paced, especially the whole time that she's in the palace. And the world there was like no world building either, so I just was very lost, much like our main character. And then the last 2 star that I have here, but the highest of my 2 stars, is High School Musical, the series, The Road Trip by Melissa De La Cruz. So this is again following our High School Musical, the series characters, and this takes place right after season 1 ends, and it follows them going to a High School Musical convention around like Christmas time, I believe it is, which I really want a High School Musical convention. It's kind of basic, but at the same time very over the top about a lot of things. And it's, you know, it's kind of stupid, it's very unnecessary, but I still had like an okay time reading it. It's definitely for kids, so I think kids will enjoy it. But it was just like, okay. Now we're on to 3 stars, and the lowest of my 3 stars is Hell Y'all Doing by Leslie Jordan. Nonfiction memoir about Leslie Jordan. He writes a lot of different, like, each chapter kind of feels like a short story of his life. I really enjoyed that I could, like, hear his voice as I was reading these. Some of them were quite funny, but, like, overall, it just felt pretty meh. Like, it has its moments, but I just feel like I was zoning out here and there. So it just felt like something was missing. But overall, I did enjoy this read. So my next 3-star is 10 Truths and a Dare by Ashley Elston. This is a sequel companion novel to 10 Blind Dates, which I loved. 10 Blind Dates. Highly recommend that one. This one was okay. Definitely recommend reading 10 Blind Dates before reading this, because this kind of gave spoilers to 10 Blind Dates. But this was... it was fine, it was fun, it was lighthearted, but most of it was unrealistic, and I didn't quite feel a connection between our two romantic leads. And I still love this family and the whole family aspect within these books, but it was cute, but it was just okay. Next on my list is Darling by Kay Ankrum. I really thought I was going to love this. This is a 5-star prediction for me, and it failed. But this is a very dark YA Peter Pan retelling. Like, it was definitely a lot darker than I thought it was going to be, and I think it was dark, like really dark, because of how realistic it felt. I really loved all of the, like, representation that was in here, but the pacing was slow and I kind of felt detached from the story. I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. Next 3-star is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. Picked this up because I was book shopping with a friend of mine. We saw this book, we both wanted it, and so we decided to kind of have a book club for just that 1 month where we would read this book and then talk about it. Which, this is the first in a series, and I want to continue with the series, even though it's a 3-star, so it was just kind of meh. But there was also something about it that was very addicting. But this is an adult fantasy romance about a Persephone and Hades retelling. And, like, I really got addicted to it, but definitely the writing is not great. And I really could not stand our main character. I could not stand Persephone. So I definitely want to read the next book, which is actually this same exact book, but from Hades' perspective, because I think I will like Hades' perspective better. And I noticed I also have a little note here, so what does it say? Oh, okay. She, for some reason, could not use the word vagina, so she just kept calling vaginas a lot of other things that just really irked me. So this is definitely a guilty pleasure, for sure. Next is Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee. This is another 5-star prediction, and it's only 3 stars. So in this book we follow Valora Luck. She sneaks onto the Titanic trying to talk to one of the first-class passengers to, like, get a job for when she's in America, because she wants to join the circus. And one of the guys on the ship, like, owns the circus or something. But there's also the problem of not only we know what happens to the Titanic, but she's also Chinese. And at this time, Chinese were not allowed in America. So it's like, also, how's she gonna figure that out? But doesn't matter, because we all know what happens to the Titanic. I loved the ending of this book. Like, the last 20% of the book, I really enjoyed. The whole beginning and middle was just so boring and very slow. If I didn't know that the Titanic sinks at the end, I would not have continued reading. But because I knew that, like, that was coming, a ship was gonna sink at some point and it was gonna get crazy and wild, because I knew, like, that was what I was looking forward to, which sounds horrible to say, but, like, that was the only interesting part of this whole story. The rest I just really didn't care about. Alright, another 3 stars, The Wicker King by Kay Ankrum. We have another Kay Ankrum on here. I enjoyed this one, but it is a 3-star. It's very weird. I don't even know how to describe this book, but I really liked how the pages go from white and slowly into black, so you're kind of going into the craziness even further. So as, like, our main character's mind, not our main character, but, like, as one of our characters' mind starts to descend into madness, we start descending into madness along with the pages. So I really love that aspect of it. I actually did quite enjoy reading about these characters. Like, this is definitely a high 3-star. I do think a lot of this book is very unhealthy. Like, their friendship was unhealthy. A lot of the choices they were making were very unhealthy choices and choices they shouldn't have made. But I thought it was interesting, and I really liked the flow and the pace of the story. My last 2 3-stars that I'm kind of gonna talk about together, I have King of Scars as well as The Lives of Saints by Leigh Bardugo. First, let me talk about King of Scars though. This is the first in the Nikolai duology within the Grishaverse. I love Leigh Bardugo. She's one of my favorite authors, and I love the Grishaverse. And Nikolai is one of my favorite characters. He's one of my book boyfriends, and I was so happy to get a book from his perspective and about him. And this follows after the events, I think it's like 3 years after the events of Crooked Kingdom. But in this, our main perspectives we're following from are Nikolai, Zoya, and Nina. I really love all of these characters, but I think the reason I gave this 3 stars and not 5 stars like I really wanted to, because again, I love this world. I think it's because like a lot happened, but it also felt like nothing happened. It was the weirdest feeling. I was like, yeah, I know things are happening, but at the same time, it feels like nothing's happening. And I just also don't think the 3 different perspectives really flowed together nicely. It was kind of like they were on their own separate journeys and they never connected. So that felt very disjointed. So overall I enjoyed it, but it felt very slow. Hold on a sec, I have some notes here. What do these say? For some reason, this is feeling really slow paced so far. I hope it picks up. Nothing too exciting happening. What is this one? Oh, I love that backstory. Cool. Oh, Nikolai's backstory. Okay, yeah, I really enjoyed that. Oh, loving some Zoya backstory. So I loved all of like the backstory and of course just loved the characters. And then The Lives of Saints is part of the Grishaverse, but it's not really part of any of the series. It's like a side little book. In case you want to know, this is the book that Alina is given by the Apparat within the first book of Shadow and Bone. And it's just a book about the saints, the lives of the saints. But we do have Alina in here, as well as someone else, but I'm not going to say who because it's a spoiler. But I love the backstory of that character. Now we're moving on to 4 stars. And before I really go into the order of my 4 stars, I wanted to talk about the Descender series, because these would have been all mixed up throughout the 4s and it wouldn't have made sense. So I feel like I want to talk about them together. But I read the first 3 volumes of the Descender graphic novel series. This is a sci-fi series about a robot war among planets. I think that's the best I could explain it. But we're mainly following this robot, Tim-22. So I think I'm just gonna like read my notes from the page here. So for Descender Volume 1, space opera with loads of adventure and heart. I can say that about all of these books. I do enjoy the art style. It's not my favorite art style, but it's fine. Let me show it to you. Some art style here. Very like colored pencil-esque, maybe? I don't know. I don't know art. But yeah, no, it's not my favorite. I like a lot of sharp lines and a lot of bright colors, and that's not what this is, but it's good. It does a good job. Oh, sorry, we're following Tim-21, not Tim-22. Ugh. We do meet a Tim-22, but Tim-21 is so wholesome. I'm excited for the series. The use of flashbacks is confusing sometimes. For the second one, I love this even more than the first, and I also do love this more than the third one, so overall, this is my favorite one so far. Flashbacks are still confusing. I'm loving the twists in this one, and the action is ramping up. Okay, enjoyed getting backstory of the characters for the third one, but I wanted the story to move forward a bit, because all we got was just backstory about like every character. Dialogue is lacking in this one, but overall really enjoying the series and want to see more. The lowest of my 4 stars is 1000 Paper Cranes by Takayuki Ishii. Yeah, Takayuki Ishii. This is a middle grade. It's very short. It's a nonfiction. So this is 10 years after the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. Although we do also see that time. We're mainly following this one child, Sadako, who died from the atomic bomb disease. And like the reasoning, like how that turned into 1,000 paper cranes. And how that's kind of like a legend. Is that what it's called? A legend? But this was a really beautiful story. I did cry a little bit. It was, whew, it was a tough one to read. But it also was very simple and an easy read, which is definitely why it's for a middle grade and for children. But I think it does a good job of discussing this very tough topic with children. But I definitely would have preferred it to be longer. I wanted more from this story. So my next 4-star is How Far You Have Come by Morgan Harper Nichols. I really enjoy Morgan Harper Nichols. This is her first poetry collection, which is one of my favorite poetry collections. Absolutely stunning. And this is her second one. I did not like this one as much, and I feel really sad about it. I did enjoy the like little interludes of like short stories about her life. I enjoyed it, but it just was not as good as her first one. I didn't feel as connected to this one as I did her first one. But still, 4 stars. Next I have one that I'm so excited to talk about, and that's Crank Palace by James Dashner. I am obsessed with the Maze Runner series. I read the Maze Runner series back when it came out. I have read all of the books within the series. And now this one. And of course I've watched the movies so many times. I actually rewatched the movies last month. It's honestly one of my favorite stories and like worlds and series of all time. I truly love it. And this came out last year and I did not know about it, and I wish I had because I would have so read it the second it came out. But this is Crank Palace. It's a short little novella following Newt. There's something that happens in the 3rd book that actually was not put into the movie. So in the 3rd book, there is a time where Newt is not a part of the story. He's not a part of the group. He kind of leaves, and the group tries to find him. So this follows Newt during that whole time that he was away from his friends, and what he did and what he went through. And it was quite a sad read, just because I also know how it ends, but like also he got to do what he wanted to do. Like he fulfilled his purpose, and it broke my heart. Also, like, Newt is my first book boyfriend that I ever had. And is still like my #1 book boyfriend. I will forever love Newt. But yeah, so it was great getting a little story from Newt's perspective and about what happened to him, which I've been wanting to know since I read the 3rd book. And there was like a good amount of action, but I found that we were mainly following Newt's descent into madness, which I actually really appreciated and liked. People will say this was an unnecessary book, but after reading it, I'm like, you know what? This was a book I never thought I needed, but I needed. My next 4-star is Iron Heart by Nina Varela. This is the sequel to Crier's War, which obviously I'm not gonna synopsisize, that's not a word, but it is now. I'm not gonna synopsisize this book because it's a sequel and spoilers. So this is just like the series as a whole. It's following Crier and Ayla. One's a human, one's like an AI robot person, and a war is happening between the robots and the humans, but Ayla and Crier are kind of in this like romance, like Romeo Juliet situation-esque. I really enjoy the 1st book. I really enjoy the 2nd book. It's very fast-paced. The characters are perfect. I had no idea where this was going the entire time I was reading it. I was just like on the edge of my seat. I did really enjoy the conclusion, but I did think it was just a little bit too abrupt. Next I have Arusha and the City of Gold by Roshni Chakshi. This is another sequel in a series, but this is the 4th book. Yeah, this is the 4th book to a middle grade adventure series that's based off of Hindu mythology. It's really cool. We're mainly following Arusha, and like a group of friends. It's very much for children, but like it's very funny, very fun, and yeah, it's just a fun time. That's like the best way I could describe this book, is that it's just a fun time. However, I thought this was the last book in the series, and then I got to the ending and I was like, wait, what? I looked it up. There's one more book coming out. My next 4-star is I'll Fly Away by Rudy Francisco. This is a poetry collection. I'll just read what it says here. I'll Fly Away uses Francisco's invented lexicon as the palette to paint an intimate portrait of Black life in America, one that praises joy and grace without shying away from the hard truths confronting all of us today. I really enjoy Rudy Francisco's poetry. You will see one of his other poetry collections later on in this video. This one I did not like as much as I liked that one, but I still really enjoy his poetry a lot. He uses a lot of metaphors and similes, and I feel like some people might find that to be annoying because he does it so often, but I really love it. I love it so much. And a lot of the things that he was saying just kept like making me go, like I just kept like being wowed and awed by his poetry. Truly love it. This one, however, my note just says, I did not realize I was signing up for a vocab lesson. So like a lot of the poetry in here is based off of his like made up vocab words, which I didn't really particularly like too much, which is why this is a 4-star, because I really did enjoy it, but learning all of these made up vocabulary words just so he can use them in poems just was a little weird to me. Next 4-star is In Deeper Waters by F.T. Lukens. I love this cover. I really thought this was going to be like a pirate romance. It's not a pirate romance. There is a bunch of this story that does take place on a ship in the middle of the ocean. But really we're following a prince and another person. I will not say more about him because anything I say about him I feel like will be spoilers. But trust me, it's great. I really liked this actually more than I thought I would. I thought this was going to be a 3-star read, even though I bought it and decided to read a 3-star read. Why would I do such a thing? But no, I really truly loved this book. The romance was cute and the characters are really fleshed out and great. I would have, however, liked maybe 50 more pages. So my next 4-star is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. This really started off with a bang and a really like punch to the heart, but I thought the romance was cute even though it did kind of go a little too quickly for me. But yeah, I really thought the romance was cute. I really enjoyed the characters. There was definitely more focus on like the family and mental health aspects than I was expecting, but I really enjoyed that aspect a lot. Next 4 stars, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. The atmosphere and the setting is so creepy. This is an adult Gothic horror where we follow, what's her name? Naomi, as she tries to find out what is happening with her cousin. She then, I guess, like moves in and kind of like spends a couple weeks in this house with the in-law family, and creepy things happen. This was also kind of like body horror in a sense, and like a lot of like gross things happen, but also I had no idea where this was going. And I was here for it. Even though the plot was a little hard to follow at times, eventually I caught up and just got into it. We are still in the 4 stars, and my next one is Broken by Jenny Lawson. I love Jenny Lawson. Her writing is just so like up my alley. It's very sarcastic, very funny, but also very stupid, but like stupid in the best way. I don't mean it in a bad sense at all. But this is another like nonfiction collection of just like stories about her life, and I just really love like the titles of these chapters as well. Let me find one. So I feel like the titles of the chapters really say a lot about her writing style, but this one says, I'm not going outside anymore. I'm with you there. How do dogs know they have penises? Samuel L. Jackson is trying to kill me. Like, I absolutely love this. I love Jenny Lawson. I will read anything that she ever writes. The only reason I'm giving this 4 stars is just because I didn't love this as much as I loved Furiously Happy. I don't know, it's just a 4. It felt like a 4-star in my heart, so that's what I gave it. Next, I have How to Become a Planet by Nicole Melleby. I have read all of Nicole Melleby's books. She is actually an acquaintance of mine. We had a couple classes together in college, and I 100% support her because her writing is fantastic. I really love her stories as well. So she writes middle grade, she writes queer middle grade, and so this is her newest one. And it's about a girl named Pluto. She really loves astronomy. But she is grappling with the fact that she is a lesbian. And she also suffers from depression and anxiety really bad. As well as like her parents are going through a divorce. And seeing how that kind of plays in with her depression and anxiety is really interesting. It felt very real, relatable. I thought it was a very sweet queer exploration. However, the only issue I had with it, just one issue, is that I think the main character was acting a lot younger than her age. Like, I felt like I was reading more of a 6th grader rather than an 8th grader. I think she was an 8th grader. Other than that, really loved this book. I think this actually might be my favorite of hers so far. So, can't wait. She's coming out with another book next year, so I will definitely be picking that one up. I told you there are lots of 4 stars, so we've got another 4-star, and that is The Anthropocene, reviewed by John Green. I love John Green. I have read all of his books. He's one of my all-time favorite authors. But this is his first time not writing a young adult contemporary hard-hitting romance. This is an adult nonfiction. What? So the Anthropocene, in case you don't know, is the current geologic age in which humans have profoundly reshaped the planet and its biodiversity. So literally just like anything that's within our society these days is part of the Anthropocene. And each chapter is about a different aspect that relates to him and his life in some way. And then at the end of the chapter, he gives that thing a rating, which is weird because I am now giving this book a rating. So like an example, he talks about the penguins of Madagascar. What did he give them? He gave them 4.5 stars. He talks about the song Old Lang Syne. What did he give Old Lang Syne? Sorry if these are spoilers, but he gave Old Lang Syne 5 stars. Wow. Oh, Googling strangers. That's a fun thing. I'm not going to tell you what he rated that. Just essays on a human-centered planet. I love John Green's writing. I really do, and I thought this was fantastic. But this is funny, it's uplifting, it's inspiring. Some of the chapters are silly, but there's also a lot of chapters that are actually very deep. My next 4-star is the Tokyo Ever After by Amikyo Jean. I loved this so much. This felt like a Princess Diaries situation. An Asian Princess Diaries. We follow Izumi. She's from Northern California. She finds out that her dad he's the crown prince of Japan. So she finds out that she's a princess. So she goes to Japan to meet her father, learn about her father, learn about where she's from, how to be a princess. And then there's also a little romance that happens with her bodyguard, and I just really enjoyed this a lot. Some things did feel a little bit too convenient, but overall, had a blast. If this is a first book in a series, which I hope it is, I would love a second book. If not, I'm definitely going to be reading more from this author. My next 4-star is All You Need Is Love by Tanya Guerrero. I loved this. This was one of the cutest middle grades I have ever read. The only reason I picked it up is because of the pun in the title. I love a bread pun. And also it was a little bit about baking bread. If you know me, you know how obsessed I am with bread. I see anything with bread and I immediately have to have it. So I saw this bread pun, immediately had to have it. So we follow 12-year-old Alba. She's going to live with her estranged grandmother in Barcelona because her home situation is not great She has an abusive father. But when she goes to Barcelona, which is where her mom is from, she meets some people, so she makes some friends. She learns about baking, she learns about her culture, and she learns more about herself. It's a very coming of age story, and it's so sweet. I cannot recommend this book enough. But because it's middle grade, there are a lot of things that are very convenient. A little too convenient at times. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a 5-star prediction, but it's okay that it's a 4. 4s are still great. This takes place in the 80s in Malibu, and we're following the 4 children of Mick Riva, who Mick Riva was also in The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is one of my all-time favorite books. So this story takes place within one day, and at the end of the night, the house that they were hosting a big party, the house is up in flames. And it's just about like how it got there, why it's like that, what is happening. But we do go a lot of times back into the past and see like the love story between their dad Mick Riva and their mom June, and just kind of how that relationship happened and then where each of the kids fit in. I liked this a lot. I liked the back and forth, which I didn't realize we would get the back and forth. I thought it was just going to be the story about the children. I didn't realize we'd also get the story about the parents. I cried a couple times. It's really heartbreaking a lot of the time. And I know a lot of people didn't really like the ending. So like while we're at the party, we're not just following the children's perspectives, we're also following a bunch of other random people at the party and their perspectives. I actually really liked that. I thought they added to the story and added to the party to show like how crazy the party is. The characters I think were my favorite part. They're really interesting characters, and their relationships with each other are really interesting. And their journey throughout this entire day is super interesting. And the writing is just spectacular. The only thing I would say is that like it was boring in some parts, but overall super enjoyable. My last 4-star book is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aiden Thomas. I really loved Aiden Thomas's Cemetery Boys. I gave that one 5 stars. This was also a 5-star prediction, but it's a very high 4-star. So this is another very dark Peter Pan retelling. I love Peter Pan. Again, another one of my favorite books of all time is Peter Pan. So if I hear Peter Pan retelling, I immediately pick it up. But this is very fantasy-esque, while Darling, the one I talked about earlier, was definitely more like thriller-esque. And I just really loved this take on the Peter Pan story. I don't think the characters were as developed as I wanted them to be, but overall I had a blast reading this. I mean, I don't know if you can see all the little post-it notes full of all my notes. Let me just see what I can read of them. What about Captain Hook? Oh yeah. I don't think Captain Hook was like ever mentioned in the book. Love the use of shadows, mainly Peter's, in this story. I like what we're doing here. I thought a lot of the things he did in the middle of the book explaining the magic and Peter's magic and stuff was just brilliant. Such a well thought out and explained plot, and builds from the original material that connects to Peter Pan really well. I would have liked all this explanation sooner. Oh, who uses a Sharpie for bullet journaling? No one. I could do without this romance. Possibly it's making them make stupid decisions that are out of character. But overall, really enjoyed it a lot. Now we're on to the 5 stars. The lowest of my 5 stars is Pillow Thoughts 3, Mending the Mind by Courtney Peppernell. This is the 3rd in a poetry collection series. I have the other 2 right up there. I don't have much to say about it, except that I really loved it. I connected a lot with the poems, and it's definitely the kind of poetry I like, modern poetry. So the next 5-star that I have is Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe, I think it's pronounced. But this is a nonfiction memoir told in comic style, graphic novel style. I feel like this is more comic style. But yeah, so it's a memoir. So Maya discusses Air Path as identifying as non-binary and asexual. And yeah, that's pretty much the synopsis of it. I really loved this a lot. I loved how it was told. I liked, you know, seeing all these like pictures and things that Air went through. So I'm trying to use the right pronouns, but I actually don't know how to pronounce EIR. That's fantastic. 5 stars. I don't have much else to say about it. My next 5-star is The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. This is the sequel to The Roommate, which I also gave 5 stars. So at this point, Rosie Danan, 5 stars. It's an adult romance. In this book, we follow Naomi Grant and her romance with Ethan Coen, who is a rabbi. So it's a romance between a porn star / sex educator with a rabbi. I love it. Also, like, Naomi Grant was fantastic as a character. Ethan, I loved him so much. What a freaking gentleman and a stand-up guy. And I also thought this is, like, it's great writing, but I also thought they had really great conversations. My next 5-star is The Darkness Outside Us by Elliot Schrafer. This is a gay space romance, but more focused on the sci-fi and spacey part than the romance part, but the romance is still a big aspect to the story. It's great. I laughed, I cried, I really felt like all of the emotions as I was reading this, and it's so fast-paced. I think I read this within like 2 days, and it's a chunker. I really loved these characters, and I thought the way everything was written, it was very vivid. The whole time I had no idea where it was going, and there were a couple things too where I was like, I don't know if I quite believe it, but then they would explain it in a way where I was like, okay, I can believe it now. My next 5-star is Malice by Heather Walter. I had no idea I was going to love this book as much as I do. Also, thought this was a standalone, but it's not. It's the first in a duology. So how this ended, I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I looked it up, and it's part of a series. And I'm kind of mad because I want the second book now. I need the second book now. But this is a Sleeping Beauty retelling where kind of like the Sleeping Beauty character and the Maleficent character fall in love and have a romance. Oh, she is still called Princess Aurora, but Maleficent is named Alice, but they call her Malice because she's evil, but we get it from Alice's point of view. So we understand why she is making these choices and what is leading her to these. And honestly, I'm on her side. Wow, like, this book really puts me in her perspective and on her side because I really hated all of the townspeople, but I also just love the romance between Princess Aurora and Alice. And now my last 5-star, which means my favorite book of these past 3 months, is Helium by Rudy Francisco. I talked about Rudy Francisco earlier in this video with the book I'll Fly Away. His book Helium literally changed the way I think about things and has like really changed my mindset. This again is another poetry collection about racism and just about like his life. I want to give some examples of like his writing in here because it is absolutely stunning. So when you choose to spill like this, bleed like this, cry like this, your pain becomes an exhibit. You hang your trauma on the wall. Ask patrons not to touch, but only half of them respect the signs. Like, what does this guy do to me? Or this one too. Most people have no idea that tragedy and silence often have the exact same address. I really connected to a lot of these like passages and these poems and just like, oh, the way my heart felt reading this. Mind-blowing, life-changing. I highly recommend Helium by Rudy Francisco. And that is it for my book wrap-up for these past 3 months. I think I want to go back to doing monthly wrap-ups for books, at least, because I can't keep doing this where I just only talk for a very little bit about each book. Anyway, I do also have a movie wrap-up for the months of April, May, and June, where I talk about the movies that I watched, as well as the TV shows that I watched. So I will also link that down below, and I will see you guys later with more videos. Bye!